right, we are recording now, so good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well. All right, so as always, if you are still working on any of the previous assignment, if you need my help with it, you can ask me. I'm going to move on to the complementary portrait assignment that comes next. This assignment is due on May 4th, and that is checking my calendar. 1, 2, yeah, that's a little under 3 weeks away. That's usually I usually give 3 weeks for that assignment. We'll have one more after that. The exam week is the week of May 17th. So beginning next week, that leaves us full 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We still have 5 weeks left. This with spring semester, with spring break and a 16-week semester and exam week, which is I still have I leave exam week open for you to still finish and turn work in. So kind of a long time, which is good because then you have time to get stuff done. And I think the longer you are learning something, the more likely you are to retain it. Okay, so complementary portrait. So there are a lot of parts to this assignment, and I'm going to share my screen here. All right, and so do you see my screen of the Blackboard? Let's make that as big as I can.
Yes.
Thank you. So here, assignment section. I move the complementary painting folder up. Here, I'll just scroll down a little bit. This is an example of a completed assignment. This painting of the kitty cat and the 3 scales. One of those scales is a complementary scale. So complementary pairs are opposites on the color wheel. So in this case, this student is using yellow and violet. And yellow and violet being opposites, when you mix the two of them, they gradually will neutralize each other. And you can see what happens is this turns sort of a brownish color in the middle, but the transition is gradually from yellow, it darkens and becomes browner and then gradually turns violet. That mixture is unique. When you mix any complements, that kind of thing will happen. If you mix yellow and blue, you will get a distinct hue of green. When you mix yellow and violet, you get really what you get is darker yellow until it transitions to darker violet. So if you want to darken a color, you can darken a color by adding black to it or a darker gray, but you can also darken a color by adding its complement. And this is it's a very important aspect of applying color in real life because black is technically an abstraction in color theory. Like black and white both have a little bit of color in them, so they're never really truly neutral. But the black tends to look a little. It looks different. You can see in the second scale that is violet with black and white added, so you get tints and shades. You can see that the darkened violet is not, when you add black, is not the same as the darkened violet when you add yellow. And yellow is already a very light color. if you use blue and orange, um, they already those like orange is already like is the lighter of the two, but it's also already darker than yellow, so you get more like more of a brown. Warm colors like yellow orange, and even red orange, when you darken them, they turn brown. Brown is really usually brown is actually in terms of color theory. Technically, brown is orange. Brown is not like brown is more like a um, I guess it's more of a general but creative term for darkened, like certain darkened warm hues. And so, yeah. Now, one thing you'll notice with please notice with the third scale with yellow, with white and black added to it. Excuse me, black added to green to yellow often turns green. Black has color in it, and most of the black is on the cool side, so it's got some black has got a certain amount of blue in it, and that is why when you add it to a pure like bright yellow, that you get it sort of turns like this olivey green. That can be a problem if you're using a yellow, like a yellow in a composition, and you darken it and it turns green, and you're limited to using yellow but not green. You have to be careful with how you use yellow and how you darken it. So in this case of this painting, using yellow for shadow, the student had to use the complementary mixture, like mix violet into the yellow, in order to get a shade, in order to get a shade of yellow. Because if the student used the shade with black, it would have looked green, and it would have looked like it doesn't belong in this color scheme. So in the complementary pair, so color schemes, in a color scheme, you are limiting the number of hues that you're working with. With monochromatic scheme, you're using one. You use green, black, white, and gray, lighten it, darken it, get a full range of value from very light to very dark, and all kinds of values in the middle. With a complementary scheme, you are using two hues. Both hues have to be clearly used. So if you're using, I need to see yellow and violet in there somewhere in some form. I don't expect that, you don't necessarily have to use the fully saturated yellow or violet anywhere. It just has to look clearly like you are using yellow and violet. Or if you choose blue and orange, you're clearly using blue or orange for some, highlight or shadow. Red and green is also a complementary pair. If you just like look at a color wheel, any opposite hues. You could use tertiary hues. That would require you for this assignment to mix both of them, and mix enough of them that you have the same, like if you use like red, violet, and yellow, green, which produces some very interesting. It actually produces a very interesting and beautiful combination. Every once in a while, a student will use like two tertiary hues and make something that is really interesting. Because if you use tertiary hues, so you say you use yellow green and red violet, it's like you have both yellow. There are elements of yellow and green, and elements of red and violet, and so you really have with a complementary pair, you have a full range of color, even though you limit it to specifically two base hues. Does this make sense?
Yeah, so essentially, we should pick, let's say, two complementary hues and based on them develop like different, like lighter and darker
Yes.
shade.
Yes. And
Color, the hue of our choice, as long as they're complementary, eventually tertiary.
correct. I don't care. I have no preference. I really have no preference. Yellow, I will tell you, yellow can be a little challenging to work with because if you are, what I would suggest if you're using yellow is if you mix, if like the yellow, you can get the yellow right out of the jar. But if you take if you have just like a container that you can seal, even like some little plastic container with a lid that presses down or that screws on, um, you could take yellow and put a little bit, like you could make a little orange, like a slightly orange, like put a little bit of red in it so that it darkens it, like pushes like the yellow a little bit toward orange. That way, if you mix, that way it'll work better with violet. In case your violet has a little too much blue in it, it can help you to it can help the yellow to resist turning green if the yellow is sort of has a bias toward orange. So, but I would even you can still, even if you do run into like you're shading yellow and it looks green, then I would recommend that you just use violet for the shadows. You can just say like yellow is lighter and warmer, highlights. Violet is darker and cooler, shadows. In painting, this is something that I learned and other people learned this. If you're doing like landscape painting, if you take an oil painting class and you're doing landscape painting, you will be told, or you should be told, that your highlights will tend to be warm colors or come from warmer colors, and shadows will be painted in cooler colors. And you see this with oil paintings where like a painter will exaggerate, like the shadows will look really colorful and like bluish violet, and the highlights will look very like brighter, like warmer and yellowy. It's because that's what's happening in nature. It's more subtle than what you see, like with this painting here. It's more subtle than these like really solid, rich areas of color. But this is more like a graphic. This is like a more graphical representation with a really clear division between all of the different lights and shadows. Okay, so you see, so you have one part of this is the scales. You can paint the scales. You could start today. You could start simple. If you just say, I'm using blue and orange, I'm going to take my blue, I'm going to make another monochromatic scale. Add black, add white, make the scale. Then you're going to mix orange with red and yellow. I want you to try to make sure that you've got if you mix a complement of blue and orange, if you mix orange, don't assume that your first attempt at mixing orange is going to be accurate. If you're close, if you're close to orange, the mixed, it'll work. But I would like you to try to get your complement more as accurate as possible. That means that if you paint it, paint samples of paint a sample of your complementary mixture, whether you're if you're using orange, paint samples of it and then evaluate it after the paint dries to see is this orange, because you might assume that it's orange and it could be really closer to yellow orange. And I'd like you to try to make it accurate. Okay? And when you mix the the secondary color, make sure you mix up enough. Make sure you have a container to put it in so you can preserve it. It's possible that you'll run out and you'll have to recreate it. That's fine too. That's just more learning where you will have to match a color. By now, hopefully, you're starting to get better at seeing color, and it won't be too difficult. Not that this ever really gets easy. Things aren't really supposed to. Things don't necessarily get easy. I guess we maybe just get comfortable with it. Okay. So, what about the photograph? You have. I want you to choose a photograph, a portrait. It can be an animal or a human. And I'm going to go to this here. So I chose this guy. I'm going to make that a little smaller so you can see. So this, when I'm looking for the photograph, I want to choose a photograph that looks like where I can see like the separation of light and shadow on the face, because I'm going to simplify it when I trace it. If you have any of you ever done Photoshop?
Yes,
Okay. If you have you ever posterized an image?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so basically what you're going to do is like a homemade version of posterizing. Um, and the idea is, so like if you trace this, so here's a picture of my tracing and my transfer. This is a bit detailed. It looks a little bit like stained glass or something, but I want you to try to trace the shapes of light and dark that you see. And as long as you're close, so you transfer this to a piece of the media paper so that you can make the painting. So here's me mixing up my orange. Just doing some like color samples. This is what it looks like with me starting to apply the color to the painting. Where you place the colors is up to you. You can decide it's going to be like organized um, more realistically, like shadows are dark and cool, highlights are light and warm. That's fine, but you don't have to. So here's an example of, let's see. I'm going to. All right. So what I did is like normally, like if we were in class, I would ask you to bring a printed photo, and then we would trace it using a light table. In this case, I just taped a piece of tracing paper to my computer monitor and traced it. And as soon as this video is done buffering, you can see this. So there's some shorter videos that I was able to embed into the Blackboard page. I have stuff. There is stuff in the YouTube also. I'll point that out to you. But so what I'm doing is I'm just with a sharp pencil. I'm carefully tracing as best I can the shapes of light and dark that I see. When starting out, I would suggest you go for the most obvious and clear shapes of dark and light. It's almost done. Buffering, yay. So the computer screen is kind of a nice light table. Hopefully you've got a decent sized one. Let's watch that again. Come on. There we go. Oh, boo. Probably have to download this video. Yeah, I'll transfer this to the YouTube. That's annoyingly slow. Let's see. So this one, longer photo tracing. But do you get the idea of that photo tracing? Even if I just stop that video right there. And if you look at what that just like that's like that image from the video, and then you go up and you see what I have here with my tracing and my transfer.
Yeah, Duffy, I get the tracing from the computer monitor onto the tracing paper,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm feeling as though I'm having a brain freeze on how you're getting from the tracing to the media paper.
Okay. Well, the graphite transfer.
With that dark, like
Yeah.
black thing. Okay.
Yeah. So the way this works with the transfer, you can, if you trace an image and you want to transfer it like at that same orientation, like you just want to make a copy of it on, like transfer a copy of it to the media paper, you trace the photo, and then when you're done tracing the photo, it's usually a good idea to ink it so that you have an inked tracing. I usually start with the tracing with pencils so I can, correct any errors I make. Then I will ink it, and then you turn the tracing paper over to the back of the tracing, and then with a pencil, the softer, softer pencil, the better. You carefully shade on the back side of all of the lines that you traced. And then when you put this back, you tape it, you turn it back over after you've put the graphite behind it, and then you you go back over the tracing with a sharp pencil. So like here. Some of these, I think I'm going to just have to clean up my, okay. So the tracing, so what I've got there is I've traced it. Can you see how the lines look kind of like, there's like a gray underneath all the lines?
Yes.
All right, so what I did is I put graphite, after I did the tracing, I turned it over and I sort of like, shaded graphite behind all the lines. And I basically
I'm pressing kind of hard here. I want to make sure that the graphite transfers. But I also want to watch out when I press hard, I'm going to dent the Bristol, so you'll notice when you pick this up, when you go to work on it, where you can see that this is transferring. You'll notice that you'll have a little bit of a depression there. That's okay. You got to get it transferred, so kind of unavoidable. Okay, see, that's good enough. If you need to go back over it lightly after you transfer the whole thing, then you can. But again, I think I mentioned this before, that if you are painting, if you're applying a light value color, you want to make sure you don't have a heavy, a lot of graphite around the line, because that graphite will mix into your light color and make it gray-ish.
Okay. There it is. Oh, no, actually. Already had it. There we go. That's the one I wanted. Okay, so this is me. So what I'm doing here, this is me putting the graphite behind the lines. So I've already traced it, and it's upside down. So I have the tracing face down. I went over the tracing with ink, because when you put the graphite behind the lines, if the front is traced only in pencil, it can be hard to see the lines if you've got graphite on both sides. But if you ink it, you can see the difference. Yeah. So there. And you just need the graphite right behind the line. I have had colleagues who will show students to just like take the tracing and just like put graphite all over the entire back of the drawing. You'll get a bunch of graphite on the transfer to your media paper that you don't want if you do it that way. So just put the graphite right behind all of those inked lines. Okay? That. All right, so with these two, with these two, I just click those and downloaded it took a little while. I'm gonna make sure all this stuff is up on the YouTube. The YouTube is a little better way to organize it. Okay, so there. If everything is not understood perfectly today, don't worry about it because it's going to probably just take some time. There's a link to the YouTube channel there if you need it. And let's go back up to here.
Duffy, I have a question for you.
Yes.
In that portrait of the guy who looks similar, I can't remember if I know who it is, but if I looked at that,
Mm-hmm.
I think I might have hesitated to choose it
Mm-hmm.
because I think I would have been a little gun shy about the eye, especially to the right as you look at it,
Mm-hmm.
being so deep set looking or in the shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you just figure, you can't have everything? There's going to be certain parts that are more challenging than others, and you almost have to interpret.
Yes, that's a very good point. You cannot trace everything. You have to. So what happens is that you end up simplifying the picture.
Yeah, which is I'm thrilled. I
Yeah.
mean,
And that
you're
is
giving me the answer I was hoping for, because then, to be really blunt, I feel like it takes the pressure off a little to not have it be,
yeah,
we're not creating then a photograph with two colors.
correct. If you want it, I mean, you could do this. Part of this is you're learning about color and color application, and so it'll be this roundabout way of reproducing the image that is very it's like which that has specific limitations. But yeah, if you want, this is if you wanted a photo, then I would do I wouldn't do it this way if you want to make an exact replica of this photograph. So, and which is really that's something that I run into teaching fine art drawing classes. One of the things that can be very, I guess it's sort of a part of, sort of a demonstration of skill is if you can draw something accurately. And that demonstrates that you have control over the medium and skill. So if you're drawing a still life of apples and oranges, sitting in a bowl, scattered on a table, if you draw it and it looks like a bunch of potatoes, then you need to, then your representation is not clear. But at the same time, if you draw it and it's got interesting, stylization that are not necessarily accurate, but you still have communicated that it's a bunch of apples and oranges, you're not trying to reproduce, you're not trying to like challenge photography for supremacy and realism. That's really not a very, ever since photography came along, abstraction in the arts, in representation, has been sort of like the place a lot of artists have turned, because when you don't have when the photograph can do it better than you can, why bother trying to bother trying to beat it? Just need to do something that photography cannot do. And what photography cannot do is be you. And you have a unique way of doing everything, and that will also be applied to visual work. Okay, so here, assignment document, complementary portrait, 2 sections, a set of painted color scales, painted image of a black and white photographic portrait with a complementary color scheme applied to it. So I've already gone through this part with the different scales and like with how you will, go through the process of creating your, like choosing the pair, and then the process of painting the scales, which will be very similar to painting the monochrome scale arrow. So it will be monochrome scale. So here's an example. Let me make this bigger. So search for a black and white photographic portrait, print it. In this case, you don't necessarily have to print it. You can bring it up on your screen, but you need to be able to trace it. If you don't have a decent sized monitor, you could do this off of a tablet, but you can't do this off of a phone. Phone screen is too small. So if you don't have a desk monitor or a tablet, if you've only got your phone, then find a way to print it. You can still go to like shipping places like FedEx store. You can print things at those places. So Marion, to answer your question, look at the terrier photograph and look at the painting, and you'll see how much simpler the painting is.
Yes, and actually that one, because I'm a dog fanatic,
Yep.
that one really speaks to me.
Good.
I love the colors.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of interesting how the blues are pretty much just background,
Yeah.
and then they're not coming into the terrier himself.
Yes.
I'm loving that,
Yeah.
but I guess some of it could be personal preference.
It could be.
I mean, I'm sitting in a room that is decorated with blues and orange too. So
good. That is. Then I would encourage you. You don't have to choose something that's different or unusual, or like something where you think like, oh, that's hard. Maybe he wants me to do the most difficult thing. I want you to do something that works.
Yeah.
You like?
Oh, I love it.
If blue and orange is your thing, use it.
Yeah, I'm not. Everybody's different. I mean, I think it's good to try different things,
Yeah.
but like yellow and violet's never been my thing. So it's funny how you gravitate back to certain ones.
Yeah. I like blue and orange because you get really nice browns with blue and orange. And the brown is really useful for having like a colorful, like having color in your shadow.
Okay, good to know.
Mm-hmm. So also, so notice with this, like the student did not try to reproduce the appearance of the hair. The student had to break it down into bigger shapes. I don't want you to try to paint strands of hair. I want you to like enclose everything in a shape. Has anyone ever done a paint by numbers painting?
A long time ago.
So this is like custom paint by numbers. And here are her scales. You can see that her her complementary mixture here, here's her blue and the orange. It gets a little bit of green in the middle here. I don't know if you can see that, but that, it can be a little hard to control. If this is like blue out of the jar and the orange has a little excess yellow in it, then the complementary mixture will start to turn green. If it's got too much, if the orange has too much red in it, that complementary mixture can start to look violet. So you want to try to get it as accurate as you can. I'm happy with her shades, like these like orange shades with the blue, because that greenish color doesn't really show up until the middle and not much. So this is a good example right here. So you can see you do have to paint the background. You do need to simplify the background, and the way she did this was good enough. So one thing I want to make sure I emphasize here, what you're trying to do with, another thing you're trying to do with the painting is match the light and dark of the photograph in your painting. So like dark values, like the eyes and the nose and the shadows under the ears, the collar, those are painted in dark colors. The highlights, the lighter hair, highlight on the top of the head, that's painted in a lighter color. That's something that can be a little more difficult because you have to pay attention to, you're not just matching color, you're not just putting colors in the shapes, you're trying to match the value of the black and white in the color. And that's an important thing to apply value as it concerns color. All right? So you've got about 3 weeks to do this, so you don't have to you'll encounter that when you're making the painting. First thing you want to do is you want to find a good photograph. If you have so here, let me look at a couple of things here. I mentioned paint by numbers. I remember we had like this classic paint by numbers painting. Somebody in my family did, and they look like the sort of classic paint by numbers. I just do large images. Large. I think if I do paint by numbers, landscape. There we go. Okay. Does she make paint by numbers paintings for people? Well, you come on. Now, she's not making those. She's reproducing these. Where are you bastards? Oh, you're taking too long. I'm so sorry for that, folks. Too many ads on that site. All right, so, well, even like with this, nice. It's the classic Sasquatch paint by numbers. Yeah, so if you see like these, yeah, paint by numbers. So with a paint by numbers like this, you see that everything is a flat shape of color. And if you buy a you could buy a paint by numbers kit, and it will come with instructions with like the canvas board with all the shapes already on it. So the image broken down into just like, like I think it's like a light blue line shaped image, and then you just like, it gives you all the shapes are numbered, and then you mix the colors according to instructions, and then you just paint the colors into the shapes. So it breaks down that process for you. These are, yeah. So that's paint by numbers. I got a soft spot for them because it's kind of like everyone can do it. And I remember doing it as a kid, really young kid, and I didn't really like it because I wanted to like make up my own. So now, how to find? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's kind of funny. It feels sort of retro to me, and I do like that about it.
Well, it was definitely popular, like back in like like 60s and 70s. It was kind of like this, you know, like anyone can be an artist. Here's this do-it-yourself kit for making a painting, and it was definitely like part of that era. It's almost like a 50s like nostalgia, like 50s nostalgic kind of a thing. When television was invented, that's when you had the first, like basically television originally was like the first internet and YouTube. You couldn't interact with people, but you had painting, they had like painting television shows on Saturdays or Sundays, and you could like watch this show and follow along and make a painting. Exercise shows. My old favorite Jack LaLanne had an exercise show going back to the 1950s into the 1980s, where he taught fitness and exercise, and it's basically like you have all these people doing it on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Now it's everywhere. So the like television in the 1950s was like that kind of like it was like the internet. It was like on that scale. And so you could do these like, you could communicate with people from, who could be anywhere. It's way better now because you can interact with people. So now, I would say if you think, well, I don't even know what to look for. How am I supposed to know what to choose? I'll help you. Google search black and white portrait photography. Here I was looking up, teaching a portrait drawing class. So I was looking up some people like Frances McDormand, who was in the film Nomadland. So let's talk like a good photograph. I want something with a range of light and dark. So if it's like lit from the front and all the shadows are washed out of the face, it's not the greatest photograph. This one. That's good. Sorry, Elliot is like crowding my mouse pad. Where is this? This is like, I don't have a Pinterest account, so that doesn't often let me see photos of this. But, if you look up people, let's try some other. I mean, really, you just like say, like, if you don't want Frances McDormand in particular, you can just say black and white portrait photography, and ta-da! Lots and lots and lots of them. So here's my guy. So like some of them don't give you a range of mid-tone. Let's find one. Like, some of them like, this one is like, this photograph is just like does not have a lot of mid-tone. Where are you? Oh, boo. So there you are. So like that, I wouldn't choose this photograph because it's just like this. There's light, there's dark. There's a lot of mid-tone in the hair. It's also kind of small. That's a little better. but I think something like, you could also think like something like interesting, like this is very dramatic and pretty cool. Elliot, move your tail, man. Oh, it's like having like a little brother around. I love him though. Okay, so here, this is good. 47 beautiful black and white portraits. But no, that's got good midtone. That's got a good range from light to dark, and a lot of stuff in the middle. You want midtones. So all the range between light and dark. That is a lot of dark. That's interesting. There's something you can do with all those. Like this. See this one here, because of the way this is lit, the shapes the shapes are very clear, right? You can see that. Something here, like where you see like the little like strands of hair on his head. No, I don't want that. Hush. Nope. Nah, bland. Too light. Interesting, but I don't know. That looks strangely like an exploited child or something. I have a problem with photographers who go around the world and take very interesting and beautiful photographs of people who are miserable. That's usually some white guy with a lot of money, and that's not cool. Because usually they like hand people like a couple of dollars and say, "Here, can I take a picture?" Like, and then go make a lot of money off of the photo. It's a problem in the arts is people who exploit models. Okay, so you can choose, like if you have like a specific like person, like if you think there's a a celebrity you like, you can like look for pictures. Like does anyone thinking of any particular person, like I'd like to make a portrait of this particular person? Anyone?
Yes, I have a daughter having a birthday, and she had sent me a picture of when she went to Park City, and
Mm-hmm.
she has a cowboy hat on, and it's a good picture of her.
Okay.
Problem, the problem is, so I think she'd really like it because she normally doesn't run around with a cowboy hat on.
Yeah.
And it remind her of her trip, etc. So it's a good like headshot or shoulders. The problem is, Duffy, it's in color. So do you think, I mean, I'm just not that
Oh,
into
but
photography. Do you think if I went to like a Kinko's or whatever, those type of place, Office Max, that they could reproduce it in black and white?
yes, I would actually I would avoid those places because they don't know how to do anything anymore.
Okay.
They used to know how to
It,
do that stuff, and you'll go there most likely, and they'll say like, "Oh, yeah, we can't really do that," and they could, but they just don't know how, or they don't feel like it. And
okay. So it's amateur hour.
it's amateur hour, unfortunately, and partly it's not so much that it's the person. It's not. It's. I mean, it's partially it's the person working there, and partially it's the company telling their employees like, well, like don't do this because that takes time and money, and we don't want you to do that. And so they're told not to. They're basically told don't help people.
Okay.
So yeah, I would. So what I'm going to do is I took a screenshot of this. This is actually a bit of a small picture. I'm going to enlarge it. If you enlarge it too much, then and it's a low res picture, it'll pixelate. But so like this, if I think like I want, so I don't have Photoshop. I don't use Photoshop enough that I'm willing to pay for it because it's a lot of money every year to pay for Adobe stuff. So if this just like with the photo editor on my computer, I open it up and then up here at the top menu, tools, adjust
Okay.
color. Let's see, let me take a photo. Let's try this. I'll do this like even like this, how you can like manipulate colors. Here's this. Adjust color. If I take this, like the color saturation to 0, then it turns it black and white.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. If you have a photo, like if it's like something that is originally on your phone, you can use the photo, like the editing, and just like, choose a black and white setting for a color photo. There. Now also, if you wanted to like change like exposure, you can lighten it, contrast. You can manipulate the appearance of the shadows. I could make it more like high contrast.
So if she sent it to me in a text, do you think I'll still be able to figure it out on my phone how to
Yep.
manipulate it? Okay.
So if you,
All right. Thank you.
yeah, on your phone you can, yeah, you mean on your phone you can do it. I can bring up, let me bring up a photo here. I can share the screen of my phone and I can show you how to do it. Let's see. Yeah, there's a picture. Just a sec here. I'm going to stop this share of this. And I will share my phone. Okay. Make this bigger. Can I? Oh, I can't. Okay, so here, so if you basically you save, like if you have a photo sent in a text and you save it to your just like save it to your phone, edit. In the filters, like those like 3 little circles right here on the right, then I can like move it to like the different filters, and at the end here there are black and white filters. So I could choose that, and then here this like little like looks like a little like sun with a dial on it. I can choose the like exposure and manipulate the exposure. So if it's too bright and it takes midtones away, I can like darken it and create better midtones. This one is contrast. So it can help you to get to know how to, like, what your phone can do with photographs. This is Joey, by the way. This is the little orange tabby that you guys never see because he's too wild. He gets scared around Dennis and Elliot and he attacks them, which is, he's only like 8 pounds and he's just he grew up in he started life in a feral colony. So he has this sort of like competitive survival nature about him. He's a sweet little guy, but he gets nervous and thinks he has to fight. So there, I changed that. So now this photograph is black and white and I manipulated the light and dark.
Thank you. That was helpful. Do you
Good.
have an iPhone? Do you have an iPhone?
This is an iPhone, yes.
Oh, that's good to know. And you think I can do this all from a text?
Easy. So here, let me see. Texts. Who sent me a photograph? You probably don't need to see my texts, but
That's okay. I can't see that closely.
not going to be anything. This is from my friend Ina. I don't think I have any. So anyway, so if I take this, open it up, the little like rectangle with the arrow down at the bottom, if you press that, save image, and that saves it to my photos. Done. So then like in my photos I can see, there it is.
Okay, Duffy, I thought that bottom square with the arrow was more of a send. And so you're basically sending
Yeah,
it to
yeah.
your...
Well, with that bottom arrow, that actually brings up a lot of options. You can
Okay,
like you
okay,
can, airdrop it to another Mac device.
okay. Thank you.
That gives you a lot of options for how you like what you do with the picture. So basically, you're like in that you can choose like save the photo and then you save it to your phone.
Okay, and you can get a side gig for working for one of the phone
Oh,
companies or Apple.
I'm way too smart to work at the Genius Bar. Yeah, I like it that they genius is such a overused term. Genius, like real true genius, like I mean Albert Einstein, like conceiving of the idea of relativity was like that's pretty high level thinking. I remember when I was in school in the 1980s, working at a frame shop, and we were all listening to music, and there were these people I worked with that anything that anybody did that was good, like like oh you should hear this new album. Oh my God, he's a genius. It's like he's good. Genius? It's like he didn't invent rock and roll. Come on. So anyhow, don't exaggerate. It's not necessary. It's okay to be good, very good, even great, and not like be a genius who's like coming up with something that nobody else has ever thought of. All right. So any questions? I mean, this is a lot. What I would suggest is like you can start choose one place to start. Choose a photo. Oh, one thing I do, I want to share this again. I want to make sure that it is clear if you are. All right, so like this photo of this dude with the glasses, I saved it, I opened it up, and it was actually from a small file size, and so it just like came up as a small image. If you want to make sure that you're looking for, like if say you're going to print this out, and you want to make sure that you can print it decently, and I'll show you how I would do that. Tools over here on the right of the Google search. Over to the left here, size. Choose large. If you choose any size, you get kind of a random mixture of large file sizes, small file sizes. This like tends to be higher res pictures that will print well at any size that you need. I would suggest that your photograph, but the picture, if you're going to print it off of an 8.5 by 11, the photograph should be like somewhere around like 6 by 8 inches, maybe 8 by 10. But don't make it any bigger than that. Don't make it smaller too. Like don't make like 4 by 4 inches is too small. That's so just be like 6 by 8 inches. If it's like 7 by 7 inches, that's fine. Just like a range of area is what you'd want. So this sort of like sorts it. When I choose the large file size images, that sorts this for me, and it won't show me the small ones that I can't use. Also, if you are doing this, I'm working on this. I want you to do a little bit of research for one of your colors. I'm going to get this prepared for you over the weekend. The reason for that is the school really wants us to make you use the library, and it's a bit of a stretch for this class, but I'm going to do it because they've told me like you have to, and it's like okay, fine. Library services are very helpful, and the school has a library with librarians and gobs of resources, and they want to make sure that students are using them and know how to use them. All right, so here, file, new document. All right, so I've got a picture like that screen share, like that dude with the glasses. I've got a blank document. Choose insert, picture from file. That'll take it from my computer. Desktop. There he is. Insert. Ta-da! Now he's on a Word document that I can very easily print. Save it, like save as, file, save as. Dude with glasses, and then I'll choose. Get your Elliot, your feet. He keeps stretching and like putting his feet on the mouse. Harper Spring 2021. Oh, you get to see how I organize everything. There. So I drop that in my assignments folder for this class for this semester, and then I've got it. And then I can save it for good measure and then close it. Okie dokie. So that's a lot. So I would suggest that today or this weekend that you start doing some of it. You can choose to start painting this. Like the scales are kind of straightforward, so you could start there. I do want to make sure that I am clear. These scales are more of like a demonstration of the range of color and value that are part of this color scheme. That doesn't mean that you have to select colors from the scale and apply them in the painting. The painting, like the light and dark, like the values of the painting, you're responding to the photograph. So this not like you say like this brown is right here. It might not be. It's actually more like it looks like it's down on the bottom row. But it's not meant to be like the scale is representative of the colors you used in the painting, because if you made like samples, if you just painted samples of the colors in the painting for like the scales, you wouldn't have very many. You wouldn't have as good of a demonstration of the range of value possible. Okay.
Duffy, before you move off that scale picture below the dog, I have a question about the choices, the way they lined them up. I'm kind of confused. If I'm going from right to left in the middle line of what I call starting with peach and then getting kind of toward a rusty orange, then why does the third row start back up again with what looked like drop down from the box that's like number 6 or 7 over it in the second line?
Well, the scales are independent of each other.
Okay.
And so the top one is monochrome blue. Second one is monochrome orange. The third one is a mixture of the complements. And so you have to start with the saturated color on the ends.
You mean the third one is the mix of the two together from above, number 1 and 2, or A and B?
The third scale is not meant to be like it's related to the other two only in that it is an example of a mixture. So the third scale has orange on the left and blue on the right.
Right.
It's not meant to be the colors above are not meant to be transferring down.
Okay, good.
No, that's a good question, because somebody else might have had the same assumption. Like if the blue and the orange, I can see where like the hue of blue and orange in the two monochrome scales could line up one above the other. But like if you use yellow and violet, yellow is a much lighter color. Your yellow and violet wouldn't necessarily be in the same position in those two scales.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So don't try to make them match. Like don't try to make them line up, because it really won't work. And you are not the first person to ask that question. So it's a good thing for me. Questions are great because it helps me to clarify things before you run into a problem. Because I can't really remember to say everything that you might run into. All right, good. So, you've got a color scheme to decide upon, you've got scales to paint, and you've got a photograph to find. and transfer. If it's not, if it's in color, you can change it to black and white. If you have, excuse me, a portrait of, last semester a student did a really nice portrait of her grandfather. That's, great. If you want to make it personal and choose someone someone you care about, an animal, a dog, or a cat that you care about, then that's fine. I want you. I mean, I want if the end result is a painting that you're happy with, that's like something that's actually like, like a real photo. Like, or I guess it's more like it's real art that you made. Then great, do it. Oh, here, Adele. This is a good picture of Adele. I want to show you. Oh, Putin, what are you doing here? Clinton Zuckerberg, where are his bangs? I love his like weird bangs that he has now. Let's see here, like he looks like he's like underwater or something. Let's see. Oh, you know what I wanted to do? I don't have Photoshop here. I'm going to just look for posterization. Da-da. There. So like you can do this in Photoshop, and like really like what you're doing. I don't know why they didn't get his hair, but you can see like posterizing in digital media it sort of like flattens everything out. And here, look, there's there are a lot of ways like to be very specific about how you're doing it. The Obama Hope poster is an example of posterization. The designer Shepard Fairey ripped off a photographer to get this photograph, right? So like to make this image, and he didn't need to steal somebody else's picture, but there. So then that sort of became this like really, popular image. Mouse, that's good. With Procreate, oh yeah, I use Procreate. So you see, it takes transition out of the shadows. So everything is just a flat color. Bob Marley. So you still know who it is, you still recognize the picture, but everything is done in just flat areas of color. And here, let's see, how to posterize a photo. So you could do this. It might help you in the tracing to be able to posterize it. Oh, I love the George Harrison. This is like trippy 60s stuff. 60s graphic design is pretty cool. All right, so that's posterizing. I don't think I need to go on about that anymore. All right, so that's a lot to think about. You don't have to do all of it all like at the same time. I don't expect you to be painting the scales and simultaneously tracing a photograph. Just do one thing at a time. Choose wherever you start. You can just like keep it organized. Like I'm going to do my scales, then I'll worry. Like you can look up the picture and maybe like find the picture, save it. After you get some work done painting your scales, then you can turn to tracing, doing the initial tracing. All right. So next week when I do the like the Tuesday and Thursday sessions, I will demonstrate different aspects of it. I think I need to go back and share again because I just remembered that I have a tab open for my YouTube. This is from last from the fall semester. Oh, here's the grandpa. This is really good. Live session. There we go. Painting demo for complementary portrait. Live session, mixing complements. There. So if you, I'll move that one up. I'll move those videos up closer to the top. Those are like, if you go to the Design One playlist, if you scroll down, you'll find stuff from previous semesters. And there's Elliot as usual. Here. There we go. Okay. I think this is like I'm using a sheet of paper from the monochrome assignment.
Reds, and then just gets really flaky.
I'm gonna hush you. Let's see. I've got yellow. I'm making, here I'm making the orange. So there, I'm making the orange. And then here, yeah, there we go. I get my orange. Now I'm mixing blue into it. So this is my orange with blue going into it. Come on, paint it. There, you can see my colors are getting browner. All right, so you can check that out. Just like jump forward a little bit. You can see where I'm getting browner. Oh, I'm a little bit out of the frame. There, there we go. That nice chocolatey color I'm getting. I really love the browns. So you can see my brown is it looks a little bit green in the cup, but it looks less green when I paint them out. So in this case, I wouldn't say, oh no, it's getting a teeny bit green, stop and change your orange. Don't. It's good enough. That's still brown. I just say that because you can mix, if you've got like too much yellow in your, really, like if it's really more like you have yellow orange, that complementary mixture will get very green. What I'm doing right here is good. Okay. There. So it's color magic. It's an important thing to learn about color. When you make, when I took painting classes, we were not permitted to use black. We had to darken colors with other colors, and so we had no choice but to learn about complementary mixtures, because that's how you can make, how dark violet can get, and if you mix a little bit of like yellow or orange into violet, it'll just like neutralize and it'll get nearly black. And functionally, that is enough. All right. Any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. Yes, I do have a question.
All right.
Can you hear me?
So,
Hey, Duffy, it's Marion. Can you hear me?
right. I think that's probably good for the morning. I will see you Tuesday if you're there. I will, if you have requests for things for me to demonstrate for you on Tuesday, please tell me. You can tell me ahead of time, or you can show up to the Tuesday morning thing and say, I need help figuring out this specific problem, and I will help you. And next Tuesday, oh, Marianne, I think I can't. Oh, you know what? Wait a minute. Oh, there we go. I think I had my sound off.
Can you hear me now, Duffy?
Yes. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. Hey, Brody, thanks. I'm so slow in the pickup with the tech. Using the chat is a struggle for me. Anyway, Duffy, thank you for all this. I'm excited about this project. Um, I was a little late and I can read the document, but as far as the finished size, are we going to get to that later? I'm a little confused when I saw the picture of the cat and then the violet and yellow samples below it, and the dog and the other ones you showed.
Right.
Is there flexibility in terms of the ultimate finished um, size that you're doing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So
And then the second thing was I don't need to know right now if I'm just painting my sort of messy samples. And I don't know about the other students, but I have learned it helps me when I make those square samples bigger. I know it uses more paint, but then if I mess something up, I've got, more to go with from that already finished piece.
Absolutely.
But anyway, those it was kind of intimidating to me, although it looked really cool the way they had all those samples so uniformly cut and spaced and presented. Um, so ultimately, did the artists in those basically cut them out and then just assemble them up square by square lined up?
Yes, they are. They are all cut. Like the sample squares are cut to the probably 1 by 1 inch in size. All of them the same. And
Okay.
they're arranged.
And then
The arrangement is measured.
that's what it looked like.
Yep.
Okay, because I thought, holy cats, somebody can't have painted it that precisely.
No, those are all attached to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah. And that like the one with the terrier, that's an example from an in class where we worked on it's mounted to a 15 by 20 board, and the range of the size of the photograph is like no larger than 8 by 10 inches. I think 6 by 8 inches is fine with me. That'll give you plenty to do, but don't make it too small, because then you can't define very much detail. You can't define as much detail if you make it too small.
Okay, I got those measurements down that you had said before, 6 by 6, 7 by 7, no bigger than 8 by 10.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if that was for reprinting the photograph or something, whatever. But that's great. Good for me to know, because it seems easier than something the size that's massive.
Yes. Well, that's beyond what I would expect. You're not painting, a big, 18 by 24 painting. I want to keep this within the realm of what's possible for you to do at home. Okay.